Hello, this is the evil Matt, here at Just for Fun. Today we're continuing our budget brews, and we're going black like my soul. Yeah, man, today we're gonna play some mono black, budget mono black control in standard. So here's my brief deck tag. Obviously, this is not the only way to build this, and I could tweak it a lot. And there's so many great cards in black, actually, of course, because you know what? I just love black. I love removal. I love discard. I love big, stupid effects. And so, also, I'm looking forward to Fate Reforged because there's some cards that'll make this deck a lot better. Now, I decided to take the uh, delve aspect, um, and kind of build off of that to make my mono black control deck. What I realized was there's a lot of good removal in the format. And so why don't we just make a deck that just kills everything? And after we kill everything, we can win with pretty much whatever we want. So here's the deck. Let's go through some of the choices. Um, Lands first. We have mostly swamps, a couple Urborgs to support our Radiant Fountains. So Radiant Fountain, not a bad card in a control deck, not in a monocolored deck. Not really too much harm to the mana base to play for those just to get some effects in here that do damage to us. So we want to offset that somewhat. Wilds, my favorite card in action again in this deck. Basically, what this is doing is delve. Now, again, if you have Urborg out, you could just tap it for mana if you need to, or turn. We only have three one-drop spells, so if you have one in your opening hand, you can play it in the first turn, and your delve spell then is costing less, right? Um, I guess not really a good way about this, but let's talk about the cards. I guess I'll just go in mana cost order. Despise doing its best impression here. Um, Basically, this is just when really good against control because you don't have a good way to deal with planeswalkers because as you can see, if you skip ahead a bit, I'm not playing Heroes Downfall because it's 2.5 tickets each. And part of my budget brew series here is that the whole deck has to be less than 10 tickets, and we've accomplished that with this deck, by the way. So in our 2-drop, I went with a 2-2 split of Bile Blights and Pharika's Cures. Pharika's Cure is good for the same reason Radiant Fountain is good, um, gaining us some life to offset the damage we're dealing to ourselves. And Bile Blight is just great, but it's like 1.25 tickets, so I stopped at 2 of them. Um, Sign in Blood, doing what it's been doing by control since the beginning of time. Draw 2 cards for the measly payment of 2 mana and 2 life. Great card. Always happy to play it in any black controlling deck. Um, Along with Sign in Blood is Inner Revelation. Now, I want to talk about this card a little bit. This is possibly one of the more underrated cards in the format. This card is awesome. It reminds me of 4C, right? Which was 4 mana, I think, Scry 4, draw 2. It's very similar. You get to look at 4 cards, and you only have to take the 2 of them that you want. And so that's a great card selection. There's not a lot of that in standard. I mean, sure, this is 4 mana sorcery speed, but in a deck like this is possibly the most powerful card in the deck. And this is really what's winning you the game a lot. Also, the other 2 cards that you put in your graveyard are basically like, putting more towards towards your delve spells, right? So in a sense, this is 4 mana, draw 2 cards, untap 2 lands. I mean, you would play that spell, right? Um, so this is a really great card in here. Rakasa's Secret. Uh, Mind Rot plus mill yourself too. So this is Mind Rot plus untap 2 lands almost, depending on the situation. Really, really good in the deck. Every time I have this in my hand, on turn 3 I'm playing it. I don't care what's on the board because it's always a 2-for-1. And people typically, you want to get the more expensive spells out of their hand. If you're casting this on 3, good chance of getting a 4-drop or a 5-drop out of their hand. And late in the game, sometimes it's not the best top deck, but it still works pretty well. Drown in Sorrow. I got 2 in the main and 2 in the board. There's lots of little things that need to die. I've even cast this just for scry value, which I know is kind of lame, but hey, in a pinch, you gotta do what you gotta do. And it's good because it's something that can come out, against control. You can take out the cures, and this gives you some space to board in. Um, it's nice to have a good mix of removal. Um, Speaking of removal, Murderous Cut, which is pretty sick card. You almost always have enough mana enough cards in the graveyard to delve it with this deck, because of the secrets and the revelations. But a lot of the time, I end up just casting it for full mana cost, and I'm fine with it because the deck isn't. You're not really looking to do 2 things on one turn most of the time, so it's really not that big of a deal. This is a really slow paced deck. Now, as for our sweeper, since Pearl's Vault is 15 tickets, I'm going with Extinguish All Hope, which is uh, all 4 were less than a quarter ticket, I think. Um, and that art, right? 3 gods are just sitting there, walking towards the camera, looking badass pose. I mean, sick, sick. Yeah, there are a lot of inhuman creatures in the format, like Courser, Doomway, that this does not kill. But, this is what we got. Now, when Fate Reforged comes out, this is going to be Crux of Fate, I think. Um, just because coming down on turn 5 is going to be a lot better than this ends up being in the deck, but it's what we got, so I'll take it. Now, how do we kill our opponent? Well, I've gone with a 3/2 slope hunt Playmail, which would curve really nicely into Crux of Fate when that's out. Right now, it's kind of like Haunted Playmail into Distinguish, and then you can start attacking because this isn't a creature until you activate it. Um, Also interesting, it comes down on your turn, so it's somewhat like removal of some point, sort of removal, right? Or occasionally you can use it as a blocker if people don't remember that you can activate this on their turn. And also you can equip it to zombie tokens. And where do the zombie tokens come from? They come from this bad boy. So this ends up being your end game. You dump a ton of cards in your yard and you cast this for about a zillion and you just kind of say deal with it. And against any deck without a sweeper, it's probably going to be enough, especially if you have 1 or 2 of these out already. Attacking with like 2 6s and 6 2/2s is usually enough, especially after you've spent the rest of the game removing all of their threats. And I have cast this for 10 or more zombies, so not, you know, kind of an underrated card. If somebody has a couple more of these, maybe that would be great. I ran out of tickets, so I got 2 of them. Um, but I'm not sure I would even play more than 2. Maybe 1 more in the yard, in the sideboard or something like that. Right now, our board is not complete, and just kind of been tossing things around in there. I'm not sure what's best. Our betrayal obviously just comes in against black creatures, just some more efficient spell, kind of like upgrading your mix of removal. Feast of Dreams is good against the enchantment creatures, this is good in, obviously, against Light Heroic, good against anything that's like Courser. I played against the Abzan aggro deck last night, which, by the way, I wrecked. No, it was actually a really close match, but it felt really good to be with my deck. So it felt like more of a victory than it actually was. Um, 2 mana, I mean, it's conditional, but there are a lot of things that this hits. So, if I'm taking out Freakish Cure for this or something like that, it works. It works really well with Extinguish All Hope because that kills all non-enchantments, and this kills the one dude that you can't kill with that. So that's worked out really well as a mix. Um, Heavenly Sorrows are there in case I face like mono red or something like that. Sculptural Leashes, I was thinking, if I'm having like a control matchup, maybe taking out some removal and boarding in more threats would be a decent idea. And in this deck, these would be pretty fairly efficient um, threats. So, maybe some worth doing. I guess the red deck would have a hard time removing them unless they're playing white for like Shade or Vanishing Light or something like that. So, um, Torment's Crypt, I just threw a couple of these in here for the um, whip matchups because we don't have too many other ways to deal with whip, but I figure maybe if we just get rid of their graveyard, that could be decent. So, I was also thinking Agent of Erebos might be cool, just because nobody's ever played that card, so that might be a fun thing to play. But yeah, so far, I got to be honest with you. I've played a bunch of matches with this that I haven't recorded in various versions, and I've tweaked it to this so far. Obviously, there are more tweaks, and if we weren't playing budget, there would be faults, perhaps. Definitely, Heroes Downfall would be in there somewhere, and Policies would definitely be in there. But that's surprisingly good, like shockingly good. I beat almost every match I've played, I've won with this deck. It's just it's a blast. It's so much fun to play too. Uh, so I'm gonna get some matches, and hopefully I don't embarrass myself after talking about how good it is. But obviously, here's how I feel about that, right? The pros, if you look at their Grand Prix and Pro Tour records and stuff, the top guys win like 65% of the time, which means a third of the they lose one out of every 3 matches. So really, I mean, if you win half your matches, you're pretty good. There's no reason to feel bad about it. So especially if you're playing with with maybe lower quality cards to some extent. But anyway, I feel like I love consistency, so I like monocolored decks, and it's kind of a slow-ish format, so this kind of deck could work out. We're going over the top of the mid-range decks and just killing all their threats and saying, "All right, deal with some zombies, bro." So yeah, let's take this into the just for fun room, play some matches, and we'll